everyone, welcome back to the channel. In the last video, we talked about page layout mapping in ServiceNow, how to link specific URLs to portal pages. That's essential for navigation in your service portal apps. Today, we are continuing the journey and going a layer deeper by focusing on how data moves inside a portal widget. It means between HTML client script and server script. Let me show you. For that, open a widget. Okay, let me create a new widget. Okay, these are the different components we have in a widget. Let's start with a quick scenario. Imagine you are building a user profile widget in your service portal and you want to let the user type in the username, then pass that to client script for validation, and then send it to the server to fetch the user's phone or email data from the server database. And finally, you have to show that back on the page. To do this, you need to understand how to pass the data between these layers of the widget. So let's break it down. Let's discuss one on one. Firstly, let's see how the data passes between HTML and the client script. In ServiceNow widgets, you can pass the data from HTML to client script using AngularJS bindings like ngModel as well as ngClick attributes. For example, in the HTML, user have to give the input, right? For that, I am taking an input element. And to bind the data, I am taking ngModel attribute. And let me take that attribute as variable 1. We need the data, right? For that, I am initializing a variable and assigning the value to it. This variable 1 as ServiceNow. And we need to trigger that particular variable when the user hits on the send button. We need functionality to trigger, right? Let me consider ngClick attribute and let me add a function. Now take this function scope dot and let me assign it to another variable equals to scope dot variable 1. We need to check the output, right? For that, I am taking a paragraph element to see what changes going on and save it. When you click on the send button, it will show up the ServiceNow. Whatever the inputs we are giving here, it will show up there. This is how we pass the data from HTML to client. Here we are using this scope dot variable 1 to get the user input and then assigning it to the variable 2, which is reflected back in the UI. Now let's see how to pass data from client script to the HTML. In the client script, let me initialize another variable called scope dot variable 3, and this is an example to send data from client to HTML. Let me take this as well value. To get that, take a paragraph element and just call this variable. You can see the output, right? This is an example to send data from client to HTML. Simple and effective, right? We have seen how we are passing data from HTML to client as well as client to HTML. But what about server script? Let's see it now. Here in the function, we are having an object called data. With the help of that object, we can pass the data from server to HTML. Let me take this as variable 4 and its value as this is a variable value from server script. Let me call it in the HTML like this. We have to call the entire name like data.variable4. Whereas in the client script, we are just calling the variable like variable2 or variable3. But when it comes to server script, if you have to get the value from the server script, you have to take this entire thing. This is a value from server script. This is how you get the data from the server script directly to the HTML. This is a great way to preload the data on widget load. How about passing data from HTML to server script? This is important. You can't pass data directly from HTML to the server script. Instead, it goes like HTML to client and then client to server script. So you'll get the input first in the client script and then use c.server.update of or c.server.get of methods to pass it to the server. Let's see how to send data from client to server now. In the client script, let me take a variable username as user abel tutor, and I have to send this username to the server script. Let's see how we do this. For that, we have a method called c.server.update of, and in this you are passing it as object and call this, and then dot then function of response, and let's see how it's whether going or not. To check it, you can give a message here. Now let's see how we pass this data from client to the server script. In the server script, we have an object called input to get the data from the client. Input dot the data which we are sending from the client script, it is the username, and to get the abel tutor's mobile number, I need to query the table called sysuser. For that, GlideRecord of sysuser table. In that, I am dynamically filtering the users with the input we provided. Input dot username, and then let's query that, and if that particular user exists, then I need his mobile number. Data dot user mobile equals to gr1 dot get value of his mobile number. To display the content, we need to write an element in HTML. For that, I am taking paragraph element and sending the data from server to HTML. And let's save it. You can see his mobile number over here. This is how we pass the data from client to server and then display it over in the preview. Lastly, if you want to pass server data to the client, it's usually done when the widget loads. Let's see how it works. Let me comment this for now to not to get confused. For user records, let me take user table as example. And let me query the table. To get, let's take email. I need email of abel tutor. Then data dot email equals to dot get value of email. Let's pass this to client script. For that, simply initialize a variable called email and pass this data. Before that, add c dot to get the data from server, and to pass it to the HTML, take the email and save it. You can see the mail ID of the able tutor. That's it. The data flows smoothly from server to the client to view. And there you have it, a complete breakdown of how data flows between HTML, client scripts and server scripts in Service Portal widgets. If you found this helpful, give it a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe for more ServiceNow tips and tutorials. Thanks for watching and see you in the next one.